say, hey, sorry I missed last month with all of you, but I understand that Kelly hit it out of the ballpark anyway, so I wasn't missed, which is a beautiful thing. But I left because I actually have moved companies and I'm now over at US CAP. So started a new role focused in on the construction side and pretty excited about that. But I am going to continue these coffees with the architects for the remainder of this year. So I look forward to hanging out with you guys here at least once a month. Having said that, it's really fun doing this. And as I was sharing with the audience here before we started, things are opening up, right? Everybody's kind of tired of Zoom, and the ability to kind of meet in person is starting to become more of a normalcy again, and that's fun considering that nobody shaved for a year, nobody ironed any clothes for a year, right? It was just a matter of, well, as long as I'm halfway dressed, I can fit in front of a Zoom call and be okay. So I look forward to seeing you guys out in the neighborhoods, and as we open up safely. I wish all of you guys great health and success. With that, I'm excited. One of the privileges that I have is I get to have more one-on-one meetings with people because of this coffee with an architect that I probably might not have had the opportunity to meet and get a better understanding of had I not. And Cecilia certainly is one of those individuals. I had the opportunity to meet with her on Monday and learn more about her passion and what she does and what she's focused in on, and just kind of the vision of what she wants to do, not only for her own organization, but for the industry as a whole. And it kind of brings me back to why we're even doing this, right? We're connected as a group, as this ecosystem of people doing different products and services, because we want a better product. We want a better deliverable out there. And, speaking with Cecilia and what she's doing, not only from an education standpoint, investing into our future, which I'll let her elaborate a little bit more on, but also how she's utilizing that through her company to really change the mindset a little bit on what is landscape architecture out there in our neighborhoods really, really mean, and why is it so important? And interesting enough, as we come out of a post-COVID environment, people are going to be spending more time outside again, and it's going to be nice to have a better appreciation for what it takes for some of this nice stuff before you ever even enter buildings to come into an existence. So with that, our guest architect today is Cecilia Schafler from Lades Design. She has over 23 years, and I hope I said that right, Cecilia, have over 23 years in landscape architecture with a diverse portfolio of private and public clients. She holds licenses in Nevada, Arizona, and Utah. Her project management strengths include client interaction, sub-consultant management, quality control, and schedule and budget management. Additionally, for those who do or do not know, she's also an instructor at our own UNLV School of Architecture. So please help me welcome Cecilia. Cecilia, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Glad you are here. So I obviously have questions that I could start the conversation out with, but I want to open it up to you guys. Anybody have a interesting question that they would like to ask Cecilia first?
I'll start, Cecilia. My name's John. I'm with Sherwin-Williams, and I guess my question is, what got you thinking about and involved in and pursuing a career in landscape architecture? How did that come about for you?
Well, I think this is a good thing and a bad thing. I think some of us are just born this way and are just wired this way, because my parents have told me that they can remember me as a really small kid sitting there and drawing constantly, and drawing buildings and houses and trees and and things like that. And then as I got older, asking my parents, what do you call someone who does this for a living? And then my father has a childhood friend who became an architect, and so when we would vacation together, I would ask him about that. And then when I was about 8 years old, my father also went to college with Arturo Cambiero, the architect here. And when I was about 8 years old, my father arranged for me to spend a day with Domingo and Arturo. And I did that. I spent the day in the office with them, and I came away from there in a total haze and fog. And it was like, this is what I want to do. And so I think I've been on a pretty straight trajectory to get to where I am today. And like I said, I think I'm just wired this way. So good thing and a bad thing. So
Thank you.
Thank you, John, for asking that first question. It's interesting, Cecilia, the way you structured that is, how many of us, if we're being honest with ourselves, can say that we're actually living our childhood passion. You are living your childhood passion. I think I wanted to be a UPS driver. Clearly, I'm not delivering anything, but it's interesting to
my
see.
other dream was to be Miss Universe, but that
Yeah,
didn't work out. So
you still got time.
I think that ship has sailed.
You still got time. Anybody else got some questions? Okay, I'm gonna dive right in, and then you guys could chime in. And we'll see where this goes. Obviously, like any conversation, the beautiful thing about what we do here is that there's no limits, right? You ask a question, and we'll go down that rabbit hole. One of the things that I think was really interesting, and when I spoke with Cecilia earlier this week, in getting to understand again, kind of my opening statement, her passion and stuff, and I do this with all the architects that I have the privilege of meeting with, is she said a couple things that really stood out, and I'm going to bring those up and let her elaborate a little bit more on them. But the two things that came out that kind of resonated with me even stronger after our call was, she goes, Leah, I'm passionate about being stewards of our environment and stewards of our profession. And so, Cecilia, could you just elaborate and share a little bit more about those two?
Sure. I think if you go to our national ASLA website, it's in there as part of our mission to be stewards of the environment. And that makes total sense with being a landscape architect. But I think that in order for us to be good stewards of the environment, we need to be good stewards of the profession of landscape architecture. And over the last 25 years or so, one of the things that has become very clear to me is that a lot of people don't even know what we do. And so I think if we truly want to be stewards of the environment, we as a profession have to do a better job of educating people about not only what we do, but what we can do. And the way I look at it is that we can do everything from the skin of the building out. And that's a lot. That is a lot. And I think there's this notion that, oh, you're a landscape architect, which is maybe a fancy schmancy way of saying gardener, which we are not, right? We are architects. We're highly educated and trained and have a rigorous licensing process that we go through. And so I think, and that's one of the things that I am really committed to. And this year is, every year I try to pick something that I'm going to work on. And this year it's getting that out there and letting people know that not only do we exist as a profession and we are professionals, but all of the things that we can do. And within that is our responsibility to be stewards of the environment. And when we design a landscape, when we design an outdoor space, those are always things that we look at. And, how can we make it sustainable? How can we be responsible in our use of water, of plant material, shade? And, and quite frankly, I really think that those of us who work in the Mojave Desert, who went to school in the Southwest, who were trained in the Southwest, we have very, very unique skills that now are becoming globally important. Because I feel that if we can practice landscape architecture in one of the harshest environments on Earth, we can do this anywhere and we can do it well. And so that's something that's really important to me, not just on a day-to-day basis, but just on a broader spectrum, and getting that out there and letting people know that we can really make a difference, and I want us to make that difference.
Thank you, Cecilia. That's great. That's really great. I gotten a better appreciation for what it is that you folks are basically in charge of doing, and it does. I guess the comment comes quickly to my mind is it adds to the quality of life for people as well, right? Because they're impacted, their ability to visibly see things that make them feel good about where they're at and what they're doing, but also the sense of just not only visibly feeling good, but actually feeling good. You just talked about shade in the desert. I mean, how many of us run to look for a nice place to sit on a hot day, which is always the case here in Las Vegas, just to find a nice place to sit down under, right? So it's nice to understand a little bit more about what goes into the mindset of how you do that. And I agree. It's, if you could do it here in a very, very harsh conditions of a desert, why shouldn't you take that sustainability mindset and make it more of a global impact, which is great. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Yes, sir, Mark.
Hi, Cecilia.
Hey,
Good to
Mark.
see you as always.
to see you.
You know, I know you've had a long career and worked for an employee. You were an employee for a landscape firm, and then I think you worked for a city, either employed or contracted with the city. So you've had like that hat. Now you're obviously successfully wearing this hat as an owner in a landscape architecture firm. Kind of tell me your experiences, all three, and what are you enjoying now in life to get you to this point through all those experiences?
It's a great question, Mark. And yes, well, I went to school at UNLV, and then I went to work for the city of Henderson, as you did, Mark. And then I left there and I went to work for Jack Zunino. And I think most of us, particularly of my generation, at one point or another, all went through the house of Zunino. And just an awesome experience. And Jack has always been very supportive and a mentor for me. And then when my son Ben was born, I had the bright idea I wanted to stay home, and that didn't, that wasn't good. Within a year, I was working from home, and that's how I started the firm, was working on smaller projects, and then just kept growing. And then there came a time when I came back and I consulted at the city of Henderson for them. And that went on for a few years when all of that initial Southern Nevada Public Lands Management Act money came in. And so now, yeah, and now we've grown. We're a 13-person firm. And I consider us full service. And so I think, at this stage, it's kind of fun to be able to have the capacity to work on really small projects, but also be able to work on really huge, big projects and be part of big design teams and actually, work with firms from all over the world. And that has been a really great experience. But, at the same time, have the ability to turn around and say, yes, we can work on that community garden for you. We can do things like that. And so, I see us doing, as we continue to grow and explore, what's most exciting to me is to be able to look forward to the diversity of projects continuing to grow, and also having then the ability to actually go out and seek out the types of projects that we want to do that maybe we haven't done so much of yet.
Yeah, cool. Great answer. I like it.
Thanks.
Great question, Mark. Thank you. Any other questions? So, another topic that Cecilia and I spoke about that also resonated with me, that I wanted to at least bring to this conversation, because I think it's very relevant in many, many ways, is appreciation for what it takes, obviously, to do what she has done in being a very successful landscape architect and having an organization to support her on that. But also, and I say this with all respect to everybody on the call, but also doing this as a woman, right? I mean, there is, as always, challenges when you're looked at being a DBA, women-owned businesses, that sometimes don't necessarily always indicate or bring up to the people that are pursuing you your real credible things that you do that you should be looked at, right? Because they're just checking the boxes because you're a DBA or whatnot. And so, I wanted to give Cecilia the opportunity to speak about, how do you manage that through the process out there? Because it doesn't happen just with women-owned businesses, any SBA, right? It could be veteran-owned. It could be. How do you deal with working with teams so that you are really looked at for the credibility that you bring, the expertise that you bring to the table versus a checkbox, for lack of a better phrase.
Right. So, Lee, when we talked on Monday, I think I shared with you that I hesitated and resisted becoming a WBE or a DBE for years, because I didn't want to be approached for work just because I had that. And I wanted to make sure that we worked on teams and worked on projects because we have the chops for it. We have the skills, we have the credentials, right? And then it started to become a very I don't know, marketable thing and in a good way and in a bad way. But then, especially for government projects, it turned into points on a scorecard. And then we were starting to be approached to be on design teams, and they said, hey, we know you can do the work, we want you on our team, but it would also be very helpful if we could get those extra points because you are a WBE or you are a DBE. And that is when I finally decided to go ahead and do it, because at that point, you know, we had the reputation, people knew we could do the work, and then it just became, okay, now this is just an added benefit to all of the skills we bring to the table. And you know, and still to this day, we're very careful because we've had a couple bad experiences where we've been asked to be on a team because of that, and then later on we were dropped, and they brought in whomever they were comfortable working with, and I've always felt that was on me, because I didn't do a good enough job of talking to the team lead on that and saying, okay, great, yes, and I want to make sure you understand everything we do bring to the table, in addition to those points. And so, you know, lesson learned, and that won't happen again. And now we work really hard to make sure that we are qualified for the project. And there have been times when we've been asked to be on a team just for the points, or you know, we've been asked to and then realize, hey, we're not really a very good fit for this project. That is not where our expertise is, and so we've graciously declined. So because we always want to make sure that we do the absolute best job that we can on every project.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, right? And I'm sure all of us can point to some of those horror stories that they picked our company for whatever reason, and then they end up dropping it. And you know, as you and I talked about it on Monday, Cecilia, and to all of us on this call, you pick your clients based off of your own value system, right? And if that's the value system that the client has, probably wasn't going to be a long-term good fit anyways. And typically the long-term good fits don't make for very successful good projects long-term. So they're all lessons learned for all of us. But thank you very much for sharing that. Any additional questions from? Yes, sir, Mark.
So I do have one more question. I've been meaning to ask Cecilia this for a long time. So I know you work with this guy by the name of Jeffrey. How do you balance work, personal life, you know, working so closely with, you know, your husband?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's something that I think is always changing and evolving. I think it really helps that we fundamentally like each other. So, we both have good senses of humor, and so you know, that helps. I think also we recognize that we have different strengths, and we respect each other's kind of arenas. Where I tend to be more of a designer, he tends to be more of the business person for the business. And so yes, I mean, we see each other every day, we work together every day, but we understand what we each do well, and encourage and support each other in those things. We also support and encourage each other when we want to pursue things and projects that maybe I'm not so interested in, but he is for whatever reason, and vice versa. And we also have a very full personal life. I mean, we still have a 16-year-old at home, and we have a son who's grown and out of the house. We have a grandson. We both have large extended families, and we both have really diverse personal interests. Like I love to fly fish. He does too, but I think my love of fly fishing is greater. I'm a beekeeper, things like that. And then he has his own interests. And so, like I said, we both do fly fish together. So we have enough things that we do together, but then we have enough separate interests that, we just kind of understand we're up to whatever, and encourage each other in those and appreciate them, but then give each other kind of that space to pursue those things as well.
Well, cool. Thanks, Cecilia. You guys make a great team.
Well, thank you.
That was a brutal question, Mark, but I appreciate it because I learned so much. I gotta tell you, Cecilia, thank you, because the next time I get in a fight with my significant other, I'm just gonna say, well, at least we fundamentally like each other. Which is great, which is great. Did you say you're a beekeeper?
I am.
I
Very
didn't know that.
novice.
What's that?
I'm a novice beekeeper. I've only been at this for about a year, and I've had more accidents and failures than I've had successes, but we're getting better every day. And I've yet to be stung, so that's
You have to be stuck. And so I maybe a really dumb question, but doing it for the honey, or are you doing it just as a hobby, or?
Yeah, both. I mean, the
Okay.
honey, I have in a year have not harvested any honey. I did harvest some wax the other day. But it's actually a very cathartic thing to do, and it's very meditative. And when I'm working with the beehive and stuff, I have to make sure that I'm in the right frame of mind, because they will pick that up.
Yeah.
And I think my next door neighbor thinks I'm the crazy woman next door, and who is she talking to? Because I talk to them and I tell them about my day, and I just, it's
You
and
talk to the bees, not the neighbors, right?
yeah, I talk to the bees. So yeah, and don't get me started, because I can just go on, as everyone in my office knows, I can go on for hours and hours about just the bees.
Oh
So
God. Well, my
and,
frame of mind in front of a bee is to get the hell out of their way. So I'm good. I'm glad there's people like you. Any other questions from people in the audience? Okay, I have one final question as we're getting ready to get to the top of the hour. Cecilia, what's your, everyone is really excited about coming to the middle of 2021. There's indications, obviously, strong indications that we're pulling very successfully out of this COVID environment and moving more into a post-COVID environment. From a project standpoint, because and I could be wrong, but I believe that landscape architects get involved very early on the process. What is your perspective of business post-COVID, and just maybe give us what does the next 18 months look like?
The next 18 months for us, and I can only speak really for us, we're slammed. We are incredibly busy. We've brought on new staff. We're looking to possibly bring on additional staff. We are really busy, and not just here locally, but regionally, we're seeing a lot of activity and a lot of work starting to really bloom. And so we're very excited about the next 18 months, and we are definitely gearing up and ramping up for that. And then, the projects that kind of just kind of hung around are now like, let's go, go, go. And everybody kind of held back for a while, and now everybody has got the, just full speed ahead attitude. And so that's great. This week is the first week that we are all back in our office. And although I think virtual meetings are not going to go away, and I think in a lot of ways they're very convenient, right? Because you save that time and drive time and stuff. But I'm really looking forward, because we are very collaborative in our office. I'm very collaborative, so it's going to be nice to be able to start sitting across the table again, and drawing and figuring things out, and working together in that way, as opposed to just digitally sharing drawings and things like that. So no, I think it's looking good.
I prefer that perspective over the alternative any day of the week. Mr. Daniel Ortega has a question.
Thank you. Cecilia, I've known you for probably almost all of those 20-something years. So it's been awesome being your friend and watching the trajectory of your growth and your success, both you and Jeffrey. But I apologize for my voice. I'm a little under the weather today. So here's my question. What advice would you give the next Cecilia, or the Cecilia who was first starting out in pursuing landscape architecture, the next wave of female talented designers? What would you tell them? Or if you can go back and tell yourself some advice, either way.
The first thing I would say is that when you're in school, we do a lot of all-nighters. I would say that is just the beginning. They don't stop with graduation. And I think if you really want to succeed in this business, you have to be all in to that kind of degree of you're going to do whatever. And the advice that I would give is that and especially as a woman, know your stuff. Always be prepared. When you come into a meeting or into a project, do your homework. Know everything you can possibly know about the project, the site, your team members on the project, the client, right? So just always be prepared, and always be prepared for every meeting, every submittal, every threshold or milestone along the way. And especially as a woman, I think if you and because I really still think that this is a very male-dominated profession to a certain extent, although it's getting better. I mean, I look at the makeups of the classroom and see that in some cases now the women are outnumbering the men. But I think that and I hate to say weapon because it's not really a weapon, but I think the best stance is to always be the best prepared person in the room.
Nice.
And that takes work, but it's so worth it.
Thank you.
Well, what a great question. I really appreciate you asking that. That's cool. With that, we are at the top of the hour. I want to thank, is there any last minute? No? Okay. I want to thank Cecilia for your time. Thank you for sharing your passion. Thank you for sharing what you have accomplished through the past 20 years and what your vision is for the future. And for allowing us to learn a little bit more about you personally as what makes you tick. I'll be looking for your honey in Trader Joe's when you finally get it there. But with that, I want to say thank you to everybody. Stay safe. Have a great day. Cecilia, thank you very, very much.
Well, thank you. This went by really fast, like you promised, Lee. So thank you.
You're welcome. Take care, everybody.
Bye.